It's funny you say that because I was saying that originally genius was in the ancient Greeks and the Roman, whatever, how ancient they were. But anyway, they had this concept of genius, but they were much more sophisticated than we are these days in some respects. One of them was the understanding that genius wasn't something that somebody was. Nobody was a genius. They had a genius. And the genius was something that accompanied them. Metaphorically in the walls of the studio. It's true, it's not that there was this entity in the walls of the studio of an artist, but it's a metaphor. And so this way the great artists never had a problem with their egos because they never thought themselves geniuses. They just, you know, collaborated with a the genius that visited them. And but in this way meant that they could be detached from their creative successes and failures. And it's good that. But you see, these days it's like that's an old-fashioned view. These days people are called geniuses. You know, that's basically somebody does something that is considered ingenious, I suppose. They do something like that, and then they get labelled with it. So that then later on they can get dragged out. It becomes this thing of you. They have to spend the rest of their life trying to, live up to it. Well, but they didn't have to do that back then because it wasn't the case that anybody was a genius. It was just that they happened to have been visited by a genius, and they were just, yeah, but the thing is, it's more than mythical. It's actually healthy. It's the thing is, what is genius? As soon as you do something that people have a tendency to think of as being somewhere in that domain, you immediately become an outsider. It's like not a normal person, an exception, something strange, eccentric. And it's a comforting thing because it means that other people can then protect themselves from the idea that somehow they should be able to do whatever this genius did as well, because they can say, well, they were special, they're different. And so you end up with a separation. And then the genius, ends up isolated. And that's one of the reasons why you see creative people who have successful creative people, end up destroying themselves very often. You see it happening all the time. It's really sad. Because it's very difficult to deal with that. But they had it right, Romans and the Greeks, because they, in their culture, in that way of looking at things, nobody was ever a genius. Everybody was just a human being, and it's just that some human beings were visited by a thing. And it's right. You're right, Mike. It's like it's showing up for work. It's being present. It's being there to catch. It's like there was this idea. I mean, in my situation, right, there was this idea of this particular kind of football game. It was probably floating around, looking for some way to turn itself into a reality. So, who's it going to find? Turn itself into. It's a way of looking at it. So, who's it going to find to turn itself into reality? It's going to find somebody who worked hard at training themselves to do video game programming. So, you see what I'm saying? So it's like people, you work hard, you become good at doing things, and then if inspiration visits you, and that's pure luck, you're ready to catch it. You know, the precious ball arrives from somewhere, and you have the skills to take that and go, boom. But that's not being a genius. It's being present. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're on the same kind of page, Mike. But you see, there's a kind of a, I'm fascinated by the psychology of people, really am. And the problem I've got with the modern way of looking at these things, I mean, we take people who are successful and we put them on pedestals, but what we're actually doing is creating a barrier between people and success. It becomes, oh, you have to be special. I couldn't possibly do that, you know, type of thing. And so sometimes I wonder, you know, maybe if we didn't get so excited about success, and then maybe there'd be more of it. You get my point. It's like, yeah, because it'd be something so ordinary, you see. Success was just nothing special. It's, you know, the more special that we make it, then the more we get separated from it, and the more we separate those people who have it. Anyway, that's enough philosophy. I need to get on. Why don't I want to own my achievements? Because I don't. You know, let's see. We can break that down. It's like, why don't I want to own my achievements? Well, who am I? What achievements? And what does it mean to own? I was very into the idea of ownership of achievements. You know, I thought that was important. It's like Mike, I used to. I like everybody else. Think about it. It's like you write a book and you put your name on it. Woo. So I wrote this book. You write a video game. You put your name on the video game. This is my video game. You know, it's like, oh, own your own experience. Yeah, of course, it seems very natural, doesn't it? Yeah, but it turns out that it's not really true. It doesn't mean anything. You don't really own your own achievements. What does it mean to own your own achievements? It means that everybody else recognizes you for the achievements you made. Maybe. What's the use of that? Oh, yeah, I know. The use of that is that maybe if you were recognized for certain achievements, then people understand that you're good at doing certain things. And so then, you know, you may be good at them because you enjoy doing them. And so maybe you want to do them some more. And so maybe if you associate yourself with things that you enjoy doing and that you're good at, you'll get to do more of them. See, this is terribly naive, because it doesn't tally with anything that ever happened in my entire life. That's not what I've seen. I actually put it to you, Mike, it's not possible to own your achievements. That's what I've actually come to learn, or my lived experiences. I don't, what does it matter? It's all in the past. Past doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's all an illusion. There's a saying, isn't there? It's like the reward for a thing done well is to have done it. You heard that one? The reward for a thing done well is to have done it. And that was the last bastion for me in my life of that, because I got, of that idea of ownership, was to say, well, at least I've got that, the reward for a thing done well is that I was the one who did it. I don't even believe that anymore, to be honest. I don't even believe that, the reward for a thing done well. There is no reward for a thing done well. And it's actually quite good when you get to the point when you realize that there really isn't a reward for a thing done well. That thinking that there's a reward for a thing done well is something that you kind of pick up in childhood, and then eventually you have to grow out of it, because there is no reward for a thing done well. Seriously. I'm not being sarcastic or strange, it's just tell me. Where is the thing? What's the reward? What's the reward for a thing done well? I mean, it was Emerson, by the way, who I'm trying to remember Ralph Waldo Emerson, I think. Is that it? He was the one with the reward for a thing done well is to have done it. But that particular phrase is a big clue. It's a big shining sign that basically says, hey, there is no reward for a thing done well. Because that's when you eventually learn that that is the reward, and then there's a step after it when you actually read that that isn't even the reward. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's almost like a childlike thing. I think it's what children don't, when they're born, I don't think they are seeking rewards. I don't think they seek rewards. And the funny thing about reward is that reward probably doesn't have any meaning without punishment. But maybe children, when they're born, they're just kind of neutral. And they learn all this stuff. They learn about reward and punishment, and then they seek rewards. And then it becomes a game. It's like, what can I do? What can I do to get a reward? And so then you live your life looking for rewards. There are no rewards. Well, you just need to go and ask anybody who has been rewarded in life. And the closest you can get to a genuine reward is the satisfaction that people feel for, I don't know if they're a sportsman and person or sportswoman or whatever, and they sportsperson, and they win some, like they win Wimbledon, they play tennis and they win Wimbledon and so on. And then they get a sense of achievement for that. And I'm sure that it must feel really great. But then afterwards, what's it mean? It was just a game. It's like winning at Monopoly. It's like it doesn't mean anything. Really, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean to win Wimbledon? You win Wimbledon. It's just a big game in a Monopoly, but it's a game nonetheless. It's it. No, 30, 40, well, technically, I guess it's more like 30 years in the industry, but it's 40 years that I've been making games. And because I started off young. And not everyone's in a brutal industry. All the brutal industry has taught me is what I've just been saying. You do. What I do, I try to make good choices in the present moment. That's all I try to do. You know, I'm faced with a situation and I weigh it up and I go, well, I could behave like this, or I could behave like that, or I could do this. If I do this, the consequence is going to be that. And if I do this, the consequence is going to be that. I better decide what to do. And so I decide what to do to the best of my ability in the moment. What can you do? That's all you do. And there's no prize. There really isn't. And when you learn that, it's quite a relief, frankly. Disappointing as well, I'll be honest. It's disappointing. It's like, what? There's no prize? If I win the game, what? Even if I won the game. It doesn't matter. And I used to believe that working hard would be rewarded. I used to believe that integrity would be rewarded. I used to believe that eventually, karmically, doing the right thing would be rewarded. And I don't believe in any of that anymore. But I still try and maintain integrity, and I still try to do the right thing, and I still work hard, and it hasn't changed what I do in the slightest. I still work by the same values, but I just don't expect any reward for it. None. And that's growing up. I think I said the other day, didn't I? My father said to me one time, you know, I was a few years ago, I was at the point of giving up. You know, I give up. I said, you know, gave him some speech about how it's just entirely pointless to even try to make a better world or whatever. And he said, "Oh, you've grown up." It's like, well, thank you so much. There we are. Yes, 50-year-olds has finally grown up. You know, it's like not trying to change the world anymore. And that gap was difficult. But then you kind of realise now I've kind of got through that. So now it's like I'm just the same. I'm still a man with a mission. I just totally expect the mission to fail. and in actual fact, that's probably quite healthy. I mean, after all, nobody really wins at life, do they? So you win. Yay! There's a win. There's a win. You can beat a high score. No, I don't know. Get an extra life. Oh yeah, an extra life. Yeah, no, there isn't any of that really, is it? It's just, you know, we all lose. So the only question that you've got really that you need to answer is, who do you want to be? And that's an exciting question. Who do you want to be? Isn't that exciting? Who do you want to be? Who? Not what do you want to be, or what do you want to achieve, or what rewards you want to get, what spectacular things you want to do. No. The actual question that really matters is, who do you want to be? And that who is simply how you choose to spend your day. That's who. That defines who you are. The choices you make. The choices you make every day. The moment you wake up, when you go to bed. So, whatever you want to be, that's where you do it. In the present moment. And who cares about rewards? Who cares about credit. Who cares about? So basically what you get with this is, like he was saying, without achievements you have no identity, and that's not true. You've still got identity. You don't need achievements in order to have identity. Your identity, who you are, is the product of the. You were saying without achievements you have no identity. It's not true. You have identity through choice. Very interesting. Well, here's my theory of design, right? Identity comes from constraints. It's the constraints on the possibility of who you are, what you are, no, who you are is better. The constraints and the possibility of who you are. Well, that's the constraint and the possibilities of what you do. In other words, what you choose to do or not do really defines who you are, right? So that being the case, it means that identity comes from what? It doesn't come from what you achieve or what you've achieved. It comes from the values that you have and how you apply them to your life in every present moment. That's you. Your identity is made from the values that you apply to your life. And so achievements are not necessary for that. So without values, Mike, you have no identity. And that's why an anarchist is a nobody. Because with anarchy, by definition, if you're a real anarchist, there are no constraints upon behavior, which means there are no values, which means, in fact, there's no identity. It's kind of interesting. If you were to say to somebody, hey, you know, they were a really good anarchist, then they wouldn't be an anarchist, because you can't actually be a really good, I mean, you don't have prizes for anarchy. I mean, imagine prizes for anarchy, it just doesn't make any sense. That's why there isn't the Anarchy Olympics, you know. That's why they don't have organizations to find out who's the most anarchist. In fact, even the language has a problem with it. Who's the most anarchisty? Is you can't even say it. Who is the most anarchisty? Anarchist? Or is it just anarchist? Who is the most anarchist? It doesn't sound right. Because to be an anarchist is to be nobody. Anyway, Mike, look, the values come and go, achievements last forever. No, they don't. They do not last forever, because an achievement is really just a description of something. It's like an achievement is a description. No, it cannot matter anymore, Mike. We confuse words with reality. That is the curse of the human condition. We get in our heads the idea of a concept. We get a concept and we want the concept. You see how horrible that is? You know, it's like, oh, to be happy, what I need is a nice, shiny car of a particular make and model. And so you can get the car and you can drive the car, and it can be quite nice to drive the car, and you can enjoy that, which is often, you know, fine. And that might be a little bit different from the other side of it, which is that people want it because they like the idea. It's like falling in love with the idea of love instead of actually being in love. We fall in love with the idea of things, instead of actually the reality of them, you know. Don't ever meet your heroes. It never goes to plan. And if you're a hero, don't ever meet your fans. Listen to what I'm saying, though you might not believe. If you want, I can show you where my injuries still bleed. When fame and fortune takes you, there's nothing left to be. A failure in waiting, nothing left to see. A failure in waiting is all that you can be. So now that I have met you, one thing I have to say. How may I disappoint you today? I can't remember the rest of the lyrics. It's a song I wrote. You get the idea. It's called How May I Disappoint You Today? Tomorrow I walk in as some guy who had the misfortune to be successful at something and get noticed. But I say noticed. It's like, that's the thing, is you get noticed. I think we need a little bit of one of my favourite scenes from Monty Python. I think will probably sum up I think will be a summing up of how I feel about this subject, Mike. Okay, because I went and I made this game. So how not to be seen. Can I actually spell seen correctly? How not to be seen. And this, I think, is my last word on this topic. Okay, here we go. And well, whoa, skip ad.
In this picture, there are 40 people.
I can't hear this, by the way.
Be seen. In this film, we hope to show you how not to be seen.
Plug this in. So the problem is that I didn't avoid not being. I wasn't able to remain unseen, and that's obviously not a problem. That's a bit of a problem. Anyway, whatever. So since it was impossible for me not to be seen, I go the other way now. Just say, well, you know, you have to embrace the seenness of it, because I can't exactly sort of hide. A number of times I bump into people and they find out who I was, or who I was. They find out who I am. And they go, oh, I used to play your game. Oh. Yeah. What was that? I'm too indie for indie. Who says I'm too indie for indie? It's like I'm too. I'm always. It's like whatever it is, you know. I'm too mathematical for a mathematician. I'm well, I'm too indie for indie, you know. Dear me, I'm always too something. You see my problem, Mike. I'm always too much. Always too much. Yeah, I walk my own path. Why do I walk my own? We all walk our own paths. We all walk our own paths. It's just that sometimes we like to pretend that the path that we walk is shared. And we can share our lives with people. It doesn't necessarily mean that people will walk the same path, you know. The one that's funny though is when people think that they're walking some other path, but they're walking the path that belongs to someone else. So it's like those adverts for clothes or whatever, you know, it's fashion. And you see these models all, you know, they're all this clothes stuff, you know, and it's it's fashion, you know. So the whole point with fashion is that you do what everybody else does, and then it's like it puts the words on the screen. Do it your way. It's like, what? Do it your way? What do you mean, do it your way? It's not do it your way. It's fashion. By definition, fashion is not do it your way. Fashion is do it our way. But you see, that's the thing. And the people say, they're walking their own path. It's like, well, of course, there's a Monty Python for that as well, and the Life of Brian. You know, and Brian's there addressing the crowd and says, we are all individuals, or you are all individuals. I don't know. We are all individuals. And there's this whole crowd of people all standing there listening to Brian speak these words. And there's one guy at the front who goes and says, I'm not. Which apparently that guy who said I'm not, so I heard, wasn't supposed to do that. It was an ad-lib. He had the courage to do what shouldn't be done because an extra shouldn't speak. And he spoke. And all the other, when he spoke, because all the other extras there knew that you shouldn't speak, because against the rules, but he did. What guts this guy had to go there and say, I'm not, which is actually one of the funniest lines. And it's like, but he had the courage to do that. I'm not. All the extras around him, they all turn around and go, shh, shh. Which just makes it even funnier. I love it. It's wonderful. That was one of those memories that make life worth living, you know. Seriously, one of those things I imagine on my deathbed, I'll be looking back at life and thinking, what were the grand moments I really love, that I remember really, really fondly? And there'll be quite a few. But well, that turned out to be much more of a scene than I expected. Hi, Tony, how you doing? My hat is fashion. He's like, yeah, whatever. What was I even saying? Oh yeah, moments. I will remember that one. I mean, seriously, it's like, you remember the time that you were talking about thing, and Tony's arm came on and he said, your hat is fashion. And then I threw my hat across the room and it went and hit something and there was this big crash. That will be one of the moments I'll remember fondly. The Life of Brian, I'm not, I'll remember fondly. And of course, personal things I remember fondly, you know, which I won't go into. But there'll be those moments, those things. Reading Watership Down, that would be one. I read, because that's an interesting thing, because there was the film Watership Down, and I was about 13 or so at the time, and we went to the cinema and saw Watership Down, and I was rather taken by the film. I thought, wow, there's something about this, sort of struck a chord. And so I read the book, and the book, it's an amazing book. I loved it. And it's one of those books you read and it kind of affects you afterwards. So that'll be a fond memory. And then, of course, similar thing, Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. These are highlights. These are most definite highlights. Yeah. When I got my first computer, that'll be a highlight. Yeah. How did I get onto that topic? I have no idea.